orders, a summary and discussion of 15 of them. There is no mention of executive orders in the U.S. Constitution. I wonder why. Maybe it's because the Founding Fathers felt that it was foolish to grant any dictator this much power, and so they left it out. Now it's being used more often than passing bills through Congress. A streamlined dictatorship. Congress has become obsolete. What does Congress do now? Do we really need a Congress that signs bills without even reading them? Why do we need a backroom deals Congress? You vote for my bill, and I'll vote for yours. If those in Congress went there to represent the people, shouldn't what the people want determine what the representative votes for and against? There isn't any flexibility on the part of the representative. He or she was sent there to vote in accordance with the people. They're selling influence, and this should not be for sale if they represent the people. The system is fouled up, needs change. Where are the people in this process of misrepresentation? We're left out. Where is that going to lead? Dictatorship. The rulers rule without consent of the people, and that's tyranny. We're already there, and we have to turn it around. Representation doesn't work. Does anyone represent you on your job? No. What about sports? Do the players play the game, or do they sit on the bench and let representatives take bribes to throw the game? If anyone suggested that we replace the real ball players with representatives, you'd all shit a brick. If the representative system is the badge of democracy, let me quote the Mexican from a famous movie. Badges? We don't need no stinking badges. All of us must get involved, and so I ask you to protest in every way you can, but leave your guns at home, okay? We don't want you getting your ass shot up. First step, inform the people of these executive orders and make it clear that this is not the expression of the U.S. Constitution that the Founding Fathers dreamed of. If you want to ruin a country, just concentrate the power into the hands of a few or one man, and you'll have tyranny. Like the barbershop sign reads, no waiting. Executive orders are pure power, dictatorial power. The Founding Fathers knew that power corrupts. They were trying to come up with a fair and balanced system of government, with governing power distributed and severely limited. They installed a system of checks and balances between the three branches, executive, legislative, and judicial, but the aliens said that they eroded this firm position of the Founding Fathers one step at a time. Today, nothing is left of those restraints, and this upsets me, because we are headed straight for dictatorship, and the people have little say in anything anymore. Let's make it clear. The executive order is the tool of a dictator, not a democratic leader. A democratic leader follows the U.S. Constitution and respects the rule of law. We haven't seen one like that since the Founding Fathers. Can you name one president who did not assume powers that he did not have under the Constitution? Certainly not Lincoln. He set aside the Constitution so he could be the dictator and get unconstitutional things done. Woodrow Wilson was a total sellout. He gave us the IRS and the Federal Reserve. Thank you, Woodrow Wilson. May you burn in hell. It was a swap of campaign financing for these unconstitutional acts so that Woodrow Wilson could become president. The selfish, dirty bastard regretted doing this, you know. He said so publicly. Not good enough. 100 years later, we still have the IRS and the Federal Reserve, and this is bullshit. Name a president who did not assume powers that he did not have under the Constitution. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the king of executive orders, having written over 3,000 of them before we all got lucky and he croaked, "Goodbye and good riddance." Then who did we get? Harry Truman, the failed haberdasher. It was like his lotto number came up and he woke up one morning the president. What was Harry Truman good for? He was never fit to be the president. And I read a book about how he got there, and it was serendipity for him, but bad luck for us. Harry Truman winding up president might seem like a big mistake at first, but when you begin putting the pieces of the grand puzzle together, you see that this was by design. There has always been a ruling cabal of conspiring power-hungry parasites, and they have always wanted someone in the White House that they could control. and they haven't been disappointed since FDR. We've had more than enough sleazy presidents like Nixon and Clinton and Obama. One Bush was the most evil mastermind of the New World Order, and the other Bush was his moron kid who wouldn't have had a chance if his father didn't put him in the White House. The election was a tie, and what was our other choice? Al Gore. Is Al Gore a politician or a scientist? He's lousy at both. He has $100 million, I hear, and a lot of politicians have become very wealthy, and America wants to know, what is going on? How did Al Gore, Dianne Feinstein, and Harry Reid acquire such fortunes? They all betrayed the citizens and worked hard for the dictators and parasites, that's how. Why don't we arrest them and give them truth serum, now that it's legal to detain anyone for any reason and even torture them to get a confession? I didn't structure the rules of the game, they did. I just find them useful now that the dictatorship has decided that they're okay. I would like to see most of Congress and the Supreme Court arrested and questioned for several days while on some sort of torture rack or waterboarding device that they are currently using to get confessions out of innocent suspect victims. We are a long way from the origins and the U.S. Constitution. Like the alien said, the process was a step-by-step dismantling of the original ideas put forth. Those with power use it to gain more power and the money that comes with power and control. Soon you have a dictator in the White House, and soon after that he's no longer the one with all the power, he's just a puppet, and the power shifts to the one who controls the money. Let's trace what happened in America. In 1913, Congress was bribed or convinced to allow a private cartel of bankers to take over the nation's currency, an authority for which Congress lacked, but they did it anyway, and the people were lied to. Since then, this private cartel of bankers known as the Fed or the Federal Reserve has seized all power, and now they control the president as a puppet, and they control the Supreme Court and Congress. There is clear evidence that they control who gets a Nobel Prize. They control most nations of the world, with 178 central banks installed like fleas on a dog to suck the blood out of the host countries. It's a black hole of power, and it's sucking everything into it: wealth, power, rights, and rule of law. The puppet president now circumvents Congress and just creates executive orders. If the dictators don't need Congress, they probably don't need the puppet president, and we the people don't need Congress, the puppet president, the Supreme Court, or the Federal Reserve, do we? It's like asking, does the dog need fleas to suck its blood? The more often you see executive orders, the less often you see the people's ideas about policy and government expressed. The country has been moving toward dictatorship for decades, and I favor a return to the U.S. Constitution and the rule of law. Don't provide this puppet president in the White House with an excuse for not following the U.S. Constitution. He is a pathological liar and knows very well what the U.S. Constitution says, but he intentionally disregards it and does his best to dismantle it on behalf of the dictators who put him into office by rigged elections. Let's say it again. You won't find executive orders in the U.S. Constitution as the primary way that laws come into existence. What you do find in the U.S. Constitution are checks and balances to keep everyone honest in the three branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. The framing fathers created three divisions of control and set up the country so that none of the three could take over and become tyrant. One branch has to approve what the other branch has prescribed, but that's all gone. And the executive order is the method by which the dictators rule over America. That does not give these so-called leaders consent to rule, and that's what makes this a dictatorship. The people are not even consulted about laws and dictatorial executive orders. Their representatives no longer represent them because corporations flash money under the noses of your so-called representatives, and they have taken over our once great country. And who owns these corporations? According to World Bank lawyer and whistleblower Karen Hudes, 147 companies own most of everything of significant value in the world, and Karen Hudes is trying to stop them by filing lawsuits and bringing the facts to the appropriate sources and demanding that they do their job. She is a courageous woman, and I admire her. We need more like Karen Hudes. She is the Golda Meir of America. When Golda Meir was raising money for war, with Israel's enemies. She approached Jewish businessmen and said this to them. Let me paraphrase it as follows. You won't decide if there will be a war, only if we will win that war. Most Jewish businessmen knew that war was inevitable, and now it was a matter of if Israel would win that war. I backed Israel in those days, but since 9/11, and with Mossad's fingerprints all over it, I do not support Israel today. And I don't care if Israel's enemies overrun the country and kill everyone. It's a shame when those murderers in Mossad thought that thousands of dead Americans was worth what was gained in the process. But what was lost was my support for an entire country with a lot of good people in it, and that's the real shame. Once the world knows the truth about Mossad and their involvement in 9/11, Israel is going to lose a lot of American support. This was a very stupid move on the part of Israel's leadership. We had members of Mossad cheering when the first plane hit, and they were filming it, so we have the evidence that proves foreknowledge. Then we have Larry Silverstein warning Jews not to come to work on September 11th, 2001, so he clearly knew too. Then the BBC handing Jane Stanley a broadcast to announce that World Trade Center building number 7 had fallen when actually it was still standing right behind her and she was reading propaganda news. Why didn't anyone in Congress question the BBC? Because they're all in this together. They all want to cover it up and move on because they fear being investigated for their role in it. You can fool a fish, but you can't fool a whole school of fish, even if you wish. In this video, let's look at the summaries of the executive orders to see what they suggest to a thinking person. Executive Order 10990 allows the government to take over all modes of transportation and control of highways and seaports. Clearly too much power into the hands of a few who support the dictatorship. I rather favor an impartial organization free of the dictatorial government to have control and power over highways, seaports, and modes of transportation. At every opportunity, we have to opt for decentralized power and control. Never give any entity any more power than is absolutely necessary. Divide it up as best you can. Power corrupts. It's simple. Power corrupts. Nobody is allowed sweeping powers over many different and diverse aspects of the social and governmental structure. This is a grand mistake that you're all going to regret. Each state should demand that control is left to each state because, frankly, I don't trust the federal government on anything of great importance. With this executive order, if the people want to protest or resist the dictatorship, those who have the power and control can stop them from moving. So how can protesters organize and defend against tyranny? They can't. Where does this take us? Straight to a totalitarian dictatorship, doesn't it? That's why the Executive Order 10990 is there. It stifles resistance. The states and counties must have control over all highways and seaports so that power isn't concentrated into the hands of a few corrupt individuals who will use this power to enslave us all. We don't trust government because of what they have done with power in the past. Executive Order 10995 allows the government to seize and control the communication media. They already do that, and every dictator must have total control over the media so they can control the propaganda the way Joseph Goebbels did for Adolf Hitler. He was Minister of Enlightenment and Propaganda for the Nazi regime. Dictators must control the leakage of the truth and make whistleblowers appear as traitors. Anyone who brings you the truth is our friend, not our foe. Our foes are those who pose laws to dispose of the U.S. Constitution so they can control us. Remember that. When every crime is hidden under the umbrella of classified, then it's okay to expose the truth, and that's the only way we can counter the war criminals' efforts to hide the truth under the heading of classified. We trusted them to only place classified material under classified, and today everything is classified, especially the war crimes. We the people see what they are doing, and whistleblowers are crying foul on our behalf, but the propaganda machine portrays them as disloyal to the dictatorship. Is that a good thing? I'm also disloyal to anyone who has in mind to set up tyranny in my country, aren't you? The Founding Fathers were in opposition to the tyranny from England, and you can imagine what their reputation was like in Europe, with the propaganda machine in full operation to discredit them. Is it okay for Julian Assange to reveal what has been hidden from us when that material is of great concern to us? For example, when reporters are intentionally murdered for going to the war theater looking for truth so that we know that our military is there violating the rights of civilians by murdering them, and among the dead are children and women, do we want a Julian Assange to let us see what has been unfaithfully hidden under the title of classified? For the war criminals, the truth is classified, and the murder of innocent civilians and journalists is okay. They feel it's their business, not yours. War criminals ignore international law, and that's why they are war criminals. We need to help those who want to arrest them and not consider anyone who brings us the truth to be any kind of traitor, because we the people need the truth for a change. I believe the truth has crushing power over the dictatorship, and that's why the dictators have to suppress the truth at all costs. The truth is our most potent weapon in times of war or peace, and it should always be used everywhere, but it's being eliminated instead. We are desperate for the truth. If the truth were oxygen, we'd be suffocating. If not for Julian Assange, we wouldn't have the truth, would we? The truth is not compatible with any dictatorship, and the promise of transparency is pure bullshit from a con man. You know, I think that Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Enlightenment and Propaganda for the Nazi regime, has been reincarnated as a woman. Dianne Feinstein is helping the war criminals set up a totalitarian system so that you can't speak out without a journalist license. She wants to ban free speech. Imagine that. Maybe she forgot what happened in Nazi Germany under such conditions. 1/3 of all Jews in the world were wiped out. The Jews remain my favorite people, even though I do not support Israel anymore because of the ruthlessness and complete lack of ethics of Mossad and those so-called leaders of Israel like Benjamin Netanyahu. A Jew who supports Benjamin Netanyahu is like an American who supports Obama. Bad leadership should not be supported, no matter which group the bad leader belongs to. If I was a Jew, I wouldn't count Dianne Feinstein as one of my own. She is as bad for Jews and Americans as any Nazi from World War II. Dianne Feinstein is a traitor to all people of the world. A traitor to the U.S. Constitution cannot be a representative of the people of any state. We must insist on that. Removing Dianne Feinstein would be like removing Joseph Goebbels. A traitor to America and Americans, a traitor to foreigners as well. A traitor to Jews everywhere who know what happened before. With Feinstein around, another Jewish Holocaust is likely. Let's hope the dictators love the Jews, otherwise Feinstein will be one of those Jews who helped the Nazis round up Jews and kill them. Dianne Feinstein is on course to cause the deaths of many Jews, and all Jews should speak out about this, pointing out what happened under Hitler and the Nazis. At least Larry Silverstein let the Jews know that they should not come to work on September 11th, 2001, because there would be a catastrophic false flag event and they would be killed. Those who listened to him survived. And now Silverstein is a hero for saving so many Jewish lives on the day that Americans died, so the dictatorship could pass the Patriot Act. A totalitarian dictatorship has been set up now as a result. Did you get a finger up your ass lately while trying to board a jet? You can thank Larry Silverstein for that, but let's give him credit for saving so many Jews that would have perished on 9/11. Larry Silverstein, hero and savior, gave them a heads up because he didn't want Jewish blood on his hands, just American blood. Compared to Dianne Feinstein, Larry Silverstein is a good guy in the Jewish community. He only participated in the murder of a few thousand non-Jews. Dianne Feinstein will have a lot of Jewish blood on her hands if she succeeds in getting the First Amendment killed. I doubt that any dictator is going to allow Jews to live. Jews typically have a good education, and they often rise to the tops of businesses. I have tutored many kids, and I know how their brains function. Trust me, Jewish kids are very smart. They are a special people. But dictators have never been kind to Jews anywhere. Jews are a threat. Jews aren't fond of dictatorial rule, and they speak out. They get things done, and so dictators often kill Jews. What Dianne Feinstein is doing is not good for Jews or the rest of us. Feinstein has to go. But California has too much fluoride in their drinking water, and the people are third from the bottom in state IQ scores. So Feinstein might be around for a while. Dictators will exterminate anyone who is different from them, starting with those that few like. And once the precedent has been established, they'll come for your kind, whatever that is. And it all starts with this executive order. Your chance to resist and have a free press to keep them honest has passed. And Executive Order 10995 is proof of that. Executive Order 10997 allows the government to take over all electrical power, gas, petroleum, fuels, and minerals. In order to have a resistance movement, you have to have electricity. With this executive order, the federal government can wage war against any state, as they did in Iraq. When the dictators turn off the electricity, as they did in Iraq, you don't get gasoline or diesel. How can the trucks bring food to the grocery store? You die. This is why Executive Order 10997 is vital to the dictatorship, and most Americans are fluoridated and illuminated from the chemicals that they spray on us daily in every state. We can prove this with actuarial tables and statistics, so let the arrests and the trials begin. Nano-sized aluminum attacks the brain and causes Alzheimer's disease. So if you walk from one room to the next, you might forget what you went for. You return to your seat and realize that you went for a fork. So you go back. And by the time you get to the kitchen, you've forgotten what you went for. So you go back to your seat and you spend the whole day trying to get a fork. You're starving to death because you can't remember what you went in the kitchen for. If you complain to the EPA that the government is spraying nano-sized aluminum oxide, barium, and strontium, the EPA tells you to go fork yourself. They're not interested because they're on the side of the dictators, thinking that they're all going to get the best ice cream. But they will be betrayed in the end, and they will wish that they saw it coming sooner. With government in control of all gas, petroleum, and electricity, you are powerless and without food or water. Water has to be pumped or released with electric valves. And without electricity, you don't flush your toilets. And how long can you last in a house with sewage piled up in the toilet? Not long. It becomes highly toxic in one day. What's in the toilet will kill you and your entire family. So people will kill for a gallon of water to drink or to flush the toilet. Even if you don't use your toilet, you have to understand how the toilet works. The water in the toilet keeps the sewer lines separate from our breathing air. When the water evaporates, the sewer air can blend with your breathing air and make you sick with infectious disease. We were already warned by the aliens that a day is coming when water will be worth its weight in gold. And I think this should be considered. After all, how far did they travel to get here? Some of them can go to the future. They took one guy to the future, and he photographed the destruction of San Francisco, and I've seen a reproduction of that photo. The original was taken back by the aliens because it got the man into trouble when he showed a photo of an event which had not yet happened. I don't know how the aliens do time travel, but if they can do time travel, they just might know that water will be in short supply. Maybe there is a catastrophic event just ahead, like Planet X. And from what I've heard from insiders, there is a lot of debris in the tail of Planet X. Some of that debris is the size of a mountain. If rocks the size of a mountain rain down on the earth, big waves are in store for all coasts. If the tail contains iron oxide, which I have heard from many sources like Marshall Masters, then the surface water of the planet is going to be awful to drink. The aliens who travel to the future or the past have said, water will be worth its weight in gold. Now, what do they mean by that? I guess we'll find out, won't we? Your government also does time travel, and they have visited the future as well as the past, and it's no joke. Many whistleblowers have reported their role in time travel projects. How does the government know? I don't know, but I know this. They spent 50 years building underground cities 1.5 to 4.5 kilometers down, and they stocked it with all the best ice cream, caviar, the finest wines that your money can buy. And they have free energy systems and hydroponic systems galore. You might think, wow, these people are serious. How long do they intend to be down there? It appears to be years, not just a few days. So what's the big event? As I said, I don't know. I can't travel in time, so I'm unaware of what's coming. But the aliens can travel in time, and they are warning us. a gallon of water will be worth its weight in gold. Maybe that's why the elite have bought or stolen all freshwater resources. My water company was stolen by them. I was looking for this to happen, and when my water company changed hands, I researched it and found the takeover to be hostile. And it reeked of government corruption. Time travel is a bitch when you don't have access to the coming events. You might ask if I have time traveled. To tell you the truth, yes, I have. I just arrived here from yesterday, and I'm about to leave to go to tomorrow. Want to come with me? Okay then, let's be off. When your government can control today, tomorrow, and yesterday, what chance do we the people have? We must not allow government to have this kind of control over us because it's too much like the Nazi dictatorship. There is a lot of power in just one executive order numbered 10997. Think about it, and when you're done thinking, ask yourself, what can you do? I suppose you can make a video for YouTube and inform others of the danger. But don't be surprised if your fellow Americans are watching football or baseball and going to movies and rock concerts. They don't want to be bothered with the loss of their country. They're too busy, and that's what got us into this mess. We were intentionally distracted for decades while the dictators set up the New World Order that won't be reversed without electricity and water. Executive Order 10998 allows the government to seize all means of transportation, including personal cars, trucks, or vehicles of any kind, and total control over all highways, seaports, and waterways. So your personal car will be carjacked at gunpoint, and it will be legal because government takes it. This is bullshit. What does the U.S. Constitution say about this? It says that your private property cannot be taken in this manner. Too bad government doesn't follow the U.S. Constitution anymore. Nothing is safe. Nobody is safe. Just wait, it gets better. Executive Order 10999 allows the government to take over all food resources and farms. Control over food is paramount to the dictators. What are you doing about this? Anything? Why aren't you acting? You can germinate seeds. If you germinated tomato seeds 85 days ago, you'd be harvesting free tomatoes today. What are you waiting for? The tomatoes in your house have seeds and can get you started. Your body can't digest them, so what use are they in your sewer? Dig them out of the slices of tomato on your sandwich. Plant them, and when they germinate, nurture them until they mature. You can turn a penny seed into $20 worth of tomatoes in 85 days, and there's no investment in the world that can match that. Make planting and watering your daily routine. Executive Order number 11,000 allows the government to mobilize civilians into work brigades under government supervision. Do you hear that? That's slave labor, labor camps. Nazi Germany. It's coming. Executive Order 11,000 says so. It's as clear as a swastika. Nazi Germany had forced labor camps, and America under dictatorship will have them too. If you're a professional and you make a lot of money, what do you think of minimum wage? You'll soon be working for food. Mobilize others now to save your livelihood while you still have a chance. Speak out about advancing dictatorship in America. It's your duty to your country as well as to your family and yourself. Executive Order 11,001 allows government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. Never allow any entity to have this much power. Power corrupts. Ultimate power results in many deaths of the innocent. National security depends upon breaking up power blocks, not concentrating power. And what does the National Security Agency, NSA, work towards? Concentration of power. It's the wrong direction. Few know it. When power is divided equally among all the people, we will have long-lasting peace and prosperity. And so we must work toward this daily and teach your children that power corrupts, and power must never be concentrated into the hands of a few. The representative system makes it easy to bribe 545 individuals rather than try to persuade people to vote against their own best interests. They don't teach this in most schools. The dictators have control over what kids are taught in schools. We the people need to represent ourselves, and the first step is secession, so that we can eliminate the representatives in Washington and the regime that's draining us. The federal government today is our worst enemy, and they consider the public enemy number one. They're buying bullets to kill us. Executive Order number 11,002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. Papers, please. That's what you're going to hear. That's what the German people heard from the Gestapo, and that's what is intended by the national ID card. Dr. John Mack, Harvard professor, discovered that 40 million Americans have been abducted and implanted. We now know that the government reproduced alien craft and had them manufactured at Northrop, as well as other defense contractors. These craft were used to abduct Americans and implant them with RFID chips. Government purchased 2 billion of these chips. Why? What were they planning to do with them? While you're trying to figure that one out, I'll read the next terrifying executive order. Executive Order number 11,003 allows the government to take over all airports and aircraft, including commercial aircraft. So they own the airlines, all of them. They just nationalized them with Executive Order 11,003. And how many Americans are aware of this? That's why you have a role in this. Secession has never sounded better, do you agree? Inform others if you have time to save our species from this catastrophic takeover of our country and our planet by a handful of insane and cruel dictators. Executive Order 11,004 allows the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities, build new housing with public funds, designate areas to be abandoned, and establish new locations for populations. If you don't know about Agenda 21, then you don't understand the significance of that executive order. So go read about Agenda 21 and come back here to grasp the enormity of Executive Order 11,004. If 50 states secede and choose to be self-governing, what does the federal government have left to rule over? No land, no people, and they will have to operate on the money they have stolen from us, don't they? The way they spend, that will soon be gone, won't it? Executive Order 11,005 allows the government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. After they have taken everything else, they might as well take over the railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. My guess is that they intend to use the railroads to transport people. Is there any evidence to prove that? Yes. There are 111,000 trains with foot shackles that can transport 15 million people in one day. Some, no doubt, will go to the gas chamber and then to the crematory. Stalin killed all the intellectuals because they were a threat to his dictatorship. He killed 20 million people. I think our government has already killed 50 million people. Have you heard the rumors that the government exaggerated the world population and it's only 4.5 billion? Ask yourself if this is disinformation being put out in order to convince you that there never were those 2.7 billion people. Is this so they can kill 2.7 billion people that they deem useless eaters and nobody will raise a protest? Look at what has happened in America. There are 18 million vacant homes in America and about 3 people per household on average. So where are the 54 million homeless? We can account for only 3 million homeless. The rest are missing. Since the government controls all statistics, they don't have to tell you anything. I count 51 million Americans already missing. A cop was tipped off that kids are vanishing from national parks, so he checked into it and found that it's true. Alien craft appear without making a sound, and kids vanish. Ask the Department of the Interior how many people disappear from national parks each year, and they will tell you they don't collect such numbers. We've been collecting temperatures in towns of 1,000 people for 100 years, and they don't bother with tens of thousands of missing children from national parks each year? To me, this indicates that there is a child trafficking ring at work and the Department of the Interior is in on it. We learned from private testimony that some girls were taken by government as children to be prostitutes for the rich and famous. One young lady's name is Bryce Taylor. Her book is Thanks for the Memories. Boys are taken for sexual purposes too, forced to be homosexual to homosexual men. This is worse than the Catholic priests who molest young boys, and then the Catholic Church helps to cover it up. This is organized crime, and when your government is running child sex rings, it's time to part ways. Secession works for me. How about you? This is catastrophic. Learn what Ted Gunderson uncovered. He was an FBI chief, and now he's dead, but he told us on YouTube videos what he had found. The McMartin preschool molestation case was at the core of Ted Gunderson's investigation, and it tied directly to the CIA. You must become aware of what happened and tell others. We have an excellent way to spread the truth today, the internet, and that's why any dictatorship will have to seize control of it. Andy Perel was taken as a child and made an assassin, but he outsmarted them. He developed the ability to defy death. They killed him many times and he kept coming back. He is an extraordinary human being with capabilities I wish I had. I tried the Silva method and couldn't even heal my finger when I hit it with a hammer. They dropped Andy Perel out of airplanes and mangled his body. He miraculously healed all injuries. He got into the healing pool and healed himself. A U.S. senator saw it and couldn't believe his eyes. It spooked him. Now he sleeps with a light on. Do you think I'm making this up? Only the part about the senator sleeping with the light on, that's all. The rest is true. That story is called Project Superman. The entire book was read for you on this Back to Constitution channel. Click on playlists to see that series. Executive Order 11051 specifies the responsibility of the Office of Emergency Planning and gives authorization to put all executive orders into effect in times of increased international tensions and economic or financial crisis. Remember this, any situation can be deemed a crisis by the dictator. The puppet president's dog shits on the White House carpet, and it's a national emergency. Martial law is invoked. Executive Order 11310 grants authority to the Department of Justice to enforce the plans set out in executive orders, to institute industrial support, to establish judicial and legislative liaison, to control all aliens, to operate penal and correctional institutions, and to advise and assist the President. He is not the President, he is a puppet, and he has no proper papers. Let's be clear about that. He and Michael are drag queens living in the White House, and that means a felony fraud has taken place. The people have a right to know the integrity and character of their puppet president. This man is a crack addict. He was a regular crack cocaine user in Hawaii, and we have personal testimony to prove it. Yes, personal testimony is admissible in court. There is one way certain to prove the things I'm saying. Have Michael stripped down and have someone we trust have a look at his genitals. I vote for Geraldo. Who do you vote for? I think Geraldo is perfect for the job. He knows all about gay sex in the bathrooms. He might like going through Gestapo at the airport. You know, the finger up the ass thing. Shh, don't tell anybody. Let Geraldo examine Michael Obama's genitalia and report back to us. He could do a television special like the Al Capone Hidden Treasure flop. If Michael Obama turns out to be male, Geraldo could use the opportunity to put a finger up his ass like the TSA does to you at the airport. Let the homosexual in the White House know how it feels to have a finger violate him. If Michael turns out to be male, as many suspect. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. This man and his husband in the White House are no better than you and me. Give Barack Obama a drug test and let's see if there's crack cocaine in his blood. I'd bet my life that there is. And the American people need to know the truth about everything. We don't want a crack-smoking puppet president. And Obama said he wanted a transparent government. Let's combine the two and get to the truth. We can begin with a strip of his husband to see the genitalia. Is he a man or a woman? Who put children into the household of homosexual men? This is felony child endangerment. Someone should conduct an intense investigation to see how this came about. Nobody in the world has any photos of Michael Obama pregnant, and that's because Michael Obama was never pregnant. He's a man. And when the people learn the truth, they're going to be devastated by it. Executive Order 11049 assigns emergency preparedness function to federal departments and agencies, consolidating 21 operative executive orders issued over a 15-year period. There is the word, consolidating. All these executive orders are a consolidation of power, and each of us must work to divide up the power so that we don't have one Nazi regime holding all power, all wealth, all rights. I'm afraid of what their agenda might include. They have enough power and control this time to make the World War II Nazis look like schoolboys. Executive Order 11921 allows the Federal Emergency Preparedness Agency to develop plans to establish control over the mechanisms of production and distribution of energy sources, wages, salaries, credit, and the flow of money in the U.S. financial institution in any undefined national emergency. It also provides that when a state of emergency is declared by the President, Congress cannot review the action for 6 months. If the dictators don't need Congress, then we don't need them either. Do we? Why wait until this Nazi-style executive order is invoked? Let's get rid of Congress now. Secession does this quite effectively, and at the same time cuts off funding to all governmental agencies. I don't like the sound of these executive orders or the direction of our once great country, and I'm sure we are on the wrong path. How do we respond? We make videos or we share videos that others made, and we get the truth circulated so that everyone is on the same page. Thanks for listening. Unconstitutional executive orders, a summary and discussion of 15 of them. There is no mention of executive orders in the U.S. Constitution. I wonder why. Maybe it's because the Founding Fathers felt that it was foolish to grant any dictator this much power, and so they left it out. Now it's being used more often than passing bills through Congress. A streamlined dictatorship. Congress has become obsolete. What does Congress do now? Do we really need a Congress that signs bills without even reading them? Why do we need a backroom deals Congress? You vote for my bill, and I'll vote for yours. If those in Congress went there to represent the people, shouldn't what the people want determine what the representative votes for and against? There isn't any flexibility on the part of the representative. He or she was sent there to vote in accordance with the people. They're selling influence, and this should not be for sale if they represent the people. The system is fouled up, needs change. Where are the people in this process of misrepresentation? We're left out. Where is that going to lead? Dictatorship. The rulers rule without consent of the people, and that's tyranny. We're already there, and we have to turn it around. Representation doesn't work. Does anyone represent you on your job? No. What about sports? Do the players play the game, or do they sit on the bench and let representatives take bribes to throw the game? If anyone suggested that we replace the real ball players with representatives, you'd all shit a brick. If the representative system is the badge of democracy, let me quote the Mexican from a famous movie. Badges? We don't need no stinking badges. All of us must get involved, and so I ask you to protest in every way you can, but leave your guns at home, okay? We don't want you getting your ass shot up. First step, inform the people of these executive orders and make it clear that this is not the expression of the U.S. Constitution that the Founding Fathers dreamed of. If you want to ruin a country, just concentrate the power into the hands of a few or one man, and you'll have tyranny. Like the barbershop sign reads, no waiting. Executive orders are pure power, dictatorial power. The Founding Fathers knew that power corrupts. They were trying to come up with a fair and balanced system of government, with governing power distributed and severely limited. They installed a system of checks and balances between the three branches, executive, legislative, and judicial, but the aliens said that they eroded this firm position of the Founding Fathers one step at a time. Today, nothing is left of those restraints, and this upsets me, because we are headed straight for dictatorship, and the people have little say in anything anymore. Let's make it clear. The executive order is the tool of a dictator, not a democratic leader. A democratic leader follows the U.S. Constitution and respects the rule of law. We haven't seen one like that since the Founding Fathers. Can you name one president who did not assume powers that he did not have under the Constitution? Certainly not Lincoln. He set aside the Constitution so he could be the dictator and get unconstitutional things done. Woodrow Wilson was a total sellout. He gave us the IRS and the Federal Reserve. Thank you, Woodrow Wilson. May you burn in hell. It was a swap of campaign financing for these unconstitutional acts so that Woodrow Wilson could become president. The selfish, dirty bastard regretted doing this, you know. He said so publicly. Not good enough. 100 years later, we still have the IRS and the Federal Reserve, and this is bullshit. Name a president who did not assume powers that he did not have under the Constitution. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the king of executive orders, having written over 3,000 of them before we all got lucky and he croaked, "Goodbye and good riddance." Then who did we get? Harry Truman, the failed haberdasher. It was like his lotto number came up and he woke up one morning the president. What was Harry Truman good for? He was never fit to be the president. And I read a book about how he got there, and it was serendipity for him, but bad luck for us. Harry Truman winding up president might seem like a big mistake at first, but when you begin putting the pieces of the grand puzzle together, you see that this was by design. There has always been a ruling cabal of conspiring power-hungry parasites, and they have always wanted someone in the White House that they could control, and they haven't been disappointed since FDR. We've had more than enough sleazy presidents like Nixon and Clinton and Obama. One Bush was the most evil mastermind of the New World Order, and the other Bush was his moron kid, who wouldn't have had a chance if his father didn't put him in the White House. The election was a tie, and what was our other choice? Al Gore. Is Al Gore a politician or a scientist? He's lousy at both. He has $100 million, I hear, and a lot of politicians have become very wealthy, and America wants to know, what is going on? How did Al Gore, Dianne Feinstein, and Harry Reid acquire such fortunes? They all betrayed the citizens and worked hard for the dictators and parasites, that's how. Why don't we arrest them and give them truth serum, now that it's legal to detain anyone for any reason and even torture them to get a confession? I didn't structure the rules of the game, they did. I just find them useful now that the dictatorship